first of all, really impressed everybody's here. I was just saying before that when I was probably in your generation, I wouldn't have known to find somebody like me, and I wouldn't know where to look, and I wouldn't have found anything like this. So well done for finding somewhere. I just wanted to, yeah, like Jolie was saying about demystifying the roles within fashion and photography, and also what it is to be a set designer, and hopefully demystify that a bit as well, and inspire and place it in reality a bit. I studied fashion design and print design at Brighton University for 4 years, and in that time I had the opportunity to do 18 months work experience. So you did three years at college, 2 years at college, 1 year out in the industry, and then 1 year back to do your final presentation or show. And that year of experience actually is when I started to realize that maybe I didn't want to do print design for fashion, that actually when I worked in a print studio and was drawing flowers, that I felt like a machine, like a drawing machine, which I learnt brilliant skills that I still use today, but I didn't want to do that as my career. And I worked for a company who did art direction and costume design for pop videos. And during that 3 months, I think I was with them, I really fell in love with working and making things for the camera, whether that's a film camera or photography. I loved the immediacy of it. I loved I suppose the faking of it. The things could be very 2D. Things were always taped on at the back or pegged on. Nothing was really real. It didn't have to last much longer than a couple of hours. Paint would be dripping, but it didn't really matter. And I really enjoyed that. Went back to college, and then when I left, the company that I'd worked for offered me a job to work as their costume designer, which I did for 2 years. And there I made huge amounts of mistakes, learnt everything in a very short time, how to run a small business, how to not run a small business. I used to blow budgets. I used to do all sorts of hideous things. Things used to break. People used to be in really painful costumes that they couldn't do the dance moves in. I did a lot of things wrong, but I learned everything. And then after that, I went on to do a shoot for a friend in a fashion magazine, Dazed and Confused. And I said, I would like to make a paper background. I'd like to make a paper set. And I made that, and my phone number appeared at the bottom of the page. And really that is the moment that I'd say my career as a set designer started. I didn't know that's what I wanted to do, or that I was going to do that, or that it was even a job actually. But the phone rang, and I would do shop window displays in Paris. And then every job sort of snowballed into a few jobs, and it really rolled. And I worked with my peers from college, kept in contact with them, and I was incredibly lucky. And I think, yeah, I still feel like a bit of a charlatan, because I didn't study set design. I didn't know what it was, but it's what I do apparently. So I wanted to show you just a really quick selection of work that I've chosen, work that I like, and I'll talk a little bit about it. And probably whiz through pretty quick, because we've only got kind of 10 minutes for this. That was just to make you happy. Nice flowers. So this is a picture for Le Monde de Hermès, which is a magazine that Hermès produce. And I wanted to talk about this picture because for me, it's a favorite, because it feels like it hasn't dated. And I did this probably now 15 years ago. And sort of to demystify the magic behind it, I got my inspiration for this picture from a Maurice Sendak book called In the Night Kitchen, in which a little boy drives a dough aeroplane around a kitchen and kind of splats around, and it's all really messy. And I just thought, I'd love to make a baguette aeroplane. Did a sort of a dreadful sketch, and worked with a brilliant company who build all my sets, who are called Andy Knight Limited, and I still work with them to this day. And they're a group of people who encompass carpenters, model makers, 3D designers, painters, and also people who have not trained in any of that, but just find themselves working there because they're practical and keen, and they grow into the painter, the carpenter, the model maker. So that's a whole massive pool of really interesting people that I work with.
Shona, can you, I think you're on, we're seeing a different slide. We're seeing the H&M.
Oh, sorry.
Shop window front. I don't know if yeah.
That's weird.
I don't know if it's a delay or...
Have I only showed one picture so far or loads?
No, you've just shown the one. Maybe start, if you just share again.
Sorry everyone, tech support.
So here we go. Yeah, amazing. That's it.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, okay. We're there.
Okay, great. Sorry. So, and this aeroplane is actually made out of polystyrene, is carved and then painted. But actually the smaller baguettes and the wheels I actually had baked in Paris. So some of it is really bread. And that was really funny. I had an assistant who was French at the time, which is the only reason I could feel confident enough that she could order the right sizes in bread. So that was quite fun. Yeah. And then this is when one of my I suppose fifth or sixth shoots with Tim Walker. So I met Tim pretty much probably a year and a half after I first started to do set design. And I got introduced to him from a friend. He'd just started to shoot for British Vogue. I didn't know who he was. I don't think he knew who he was. He wasn't what he is now. And we started to work together. And the first job I did with him was actually to make some cake hats that he took to a shoot in Ireland. And I made them out of cakes and I put them in a box. And of course, on the flight, they all just completely turned into mush. But it didn't matter. But I learned not to make things out of cake, that you have to fake cakes if you're going to make things out of cakes. So all these great relationships often start with something really chaotic and not really what you all see of me or him. It starts in sort of chaos and sort of baby steps, really, and learning. And this was for an exhibition at the V&A. They wanted Vogue wanted us to do a shoot based on surrealism, and so I thought I would like to make a giant glove. And I'd never made a giant glove before. I don't stop to worry so much if I can do it or not, but I bought a glove that I liked, a small one. I unpicked it and put all the pattern pieces on a school overhead projector, projected it at the wall and cut out the pieces of pattern and just made it back up, but just really big. That makes it sound really easy. There were about 3 of us. We had to order thick felt and burn the holes to get the string through the holes. It was really difficult, but the end result was very nice, I think. This is to show. Sometimes the ones before I'd show were editorial, where we produce photography for fashion magazines, that really the only requisite from it is that we use designer clothes that pay for advertising in that magazine. Sometimes I get to do really great creative work for brands as well, which is when I always feel really lucky to do that, because you get paid to do it and you get good money to do it with, which means if you've got budget to do these things with, it makes it a lot easier. Set design is really expensive to do. It's no mean feat to get all this stuff somewhere, then get it in a van, put it up somewhere else, shoot it, take it down, and then try and get rid of it. That is actually the biggest, I suppose, obstacle to set design in general. It's really difficult and really expensive and really big. but you can get your way around that. And that's why I think I started in paper, because I could do that on my own with sellotape and a ladder. It was manageable. And now I have a team of carpenters and people who make things with me. It's not, you know, there's a lot of people involved in building these things, and a lot of time as well. And this is also just to show more of a commercial client. And for example, this job was meant to be New York, and they wanted to shoot from the to shoot Manhattan Island, and I was going to go and build some I think some benches, and in the end they were like, oh, we're not allowed to shoot the New York skyline, you're going to have to build the water. And I was like, oh my god. And so on Thanksgiving I flew to New York, and we had to build the outside, like we had to build what we were meant to go outside to shoot, and we made the water out of cling film. I mean, a hell of a lot of cling film, if you can see it, and painted the skyline. So this sort of, you know, it can all look very organized and like it was very clear what was to be done, but actually it normally comes very last minute, very chaotic and very, very stressful. And this was, I love this photograph. This is a photograph that Tim Walker took. And to me, this is where, I think this is maybe what makes me a slightly different set designer, is that I am really interested in clothes and how fashion and what people are wearing, or the costume, really has to relate to the set. And sometimes I actually do the costumes instead of just the set. And this was for a brief of how to show how the nipple became sort of okay in day-to-day sort of fashion. Yeah, and we shot this in Hoxton, which is good fun. And then this is another, this is interesting, because I used to work a lot with Tim Walker, and we only shot daylight and mainly outside. And then we went very studio based. And this is what I like about this shoot, was that it sort of, we almost built a studio outside. So the ceiling was sky, and we were on a kind of a salt quarry. So behind there is just piles of chalk. So we were trudging through chalk to build this set. And actually when we arrived, there was a digger, and he dug the chalk into a massive sort of sandcastle thing that none of us could walk on. So we had to get him to make it flat so we could actually do any work. So things like that, you turn up in the morning, you're like, oh my God, there's a mountain of chalk. There's meant to be a flat thing of chalk, but there's 20 foot of chalk. What do we do? So there's always some strange things. And then this was some pictures with Tim Walker again for Bjork. And I really enjoyed this, because this was this wasn't so long ago, but I only had I think we had a week to prep this. And Tim said, can you make me some stuff so I can take it to Iceland, just make some nice flowers or something? And I said, well, I'd really like to come to Iceland. Can I not come? If I make the stuff and put it all in the box, then I can bring it, and it would be cheaper than shipping it. And he's like, okay, it's fine. So we made these little sort of islands and sets, and I literally sort of chopped them up and we put them into boxes, and I took them on the aeroplane and set them up all myself there, which was really great, because that's how I started out. But now I have lots of people to help me, but actually this was sort of going backwards a bit. It was fully manageable to do, and I was quite reassured that I could still do it on my own, because I have amazing, brilliant people helping me now. And all the flowers actually I made out of stuff that I bought from the pound shops, like sort of weird, I think, a couple of sheepies, those things that you can do a wee into in festivals, and some of them are sort of shiwi, that's it, and melted sort of plastic picnic glasses and melted plastic plates. So a lot of this stuff is I start off with something, rather than making everything from scratch. I sort of feel like I collage a bit. I sort of buy affordable things that I can then start with, and then they lead the way. Otherwise it gets very, very expensive and very time consuming. And I took a canary and a stick insect, and they kind of became one on the left. They were dead, so I didn't do that. No animals hurt here. So this was a shoot that, which is quite interesting, because Tim has started now to shoot a lot of nudes, and this was actually the first male nudes that he'd done. And this was a story that I presented to him actually that I wanted to shoot, which was all based on Francis Bacon. And we did this in a very small studio, and because it's shot on a fisheye lens, it looks much bigger and slightly more impressive than it actually was. This was actually in a room kind of 8 foot by 8 foot. Really wasn't very big at all. And all the sort of coloured stuff is painted foam that's just staple gunned on. And the sink and the doors are big photocopies just stuck onto foam board. That makes it sound really, there's a lot of thought behind all of it, but this is a very low budget, lightweight, easy set to build, which is often sometimes required, because actually this room is up through a trapdoor, so you can't get big materials up there. So that was why I made everything in foam, and it was lighter. This is a project that we got commissioned by an art collector who loved Tim's pictures, and so commissioned us to do a shoot of his dreams with an enormous budget. I mean, this was an extraordinary job. I don't know if this will ever happen again. And here you can see this was all based on Hieronymus Bosch, and the sort of production value on this is really high, though, you know, Perspex is really expensive to work with. We had loads of models. It was, yeah, we spent a lot of money and a lot of time on shooting this, but it was, I really enjoyed that, because I could go really into using rich materials and things. Sorry. And half of this is stuff we made, half of it was sort of polystyrene debris from the set builders. I was like, oh, I use all the chunks. And also they'd done a funny job the week before where they'd made some sort of icebergs. And I tried to reuse things and not use brand new materials the whole time. So I actually just used quite a lot of stuff from their bins that they were throwing away, and painted all these sort of shapes up to look like kind of weird marbly pieces, but they're all actually pretty much polystyrene. And yeah, and those are real birds. And then these pictures got turned into an exhibition at Noorbrabants Museum in Holland, and they're enormous prints that were actually digitally printed onto gesso covered canvas, and they were enormous. They were sort of 2 or 3 meters, and the finish was just beautiful. They were finished with I think it was called rabbit wax or something. So they looked almost like oil paintings. And that process I loved. I loved getting involved in how to represent the photography in a physical way, not just the set design. So I designed the exhibition as well. And some of the props were also exhibited there too. And this is just to show actually what my sketches look like normally of what I build. They're not particularly beautiful, but they're often a mixture of, they're very clear things that sort of dictate scale and materiality to my set builders. And actually you can see the picture on the left, that picture was the result of this drawing. So that's what that turned into. And then actually the set builders often build the sort of things that we can't build, and then my team at my studio, we make all the sort of smaller, finer detailed things. I call it the girly bits, but it's really the fine details, and that's the bit that I love. And I love to really see every single thing that goes on and is involved. This is a shoot that we did recently, well, a year ago, with Harry Styles. And again, just showing one of my sketches and what that turns into. It only turns into that because I oversee the process. If I leave my set builder just to do that, it doesn't look like that. I have to go and make adjustments. I might have made it the wrong size, or the pipes were too big, or the color wasn't right. So I really make sure that I go and see the work in process. And also during the process, often it presents a new idea for something else, or often the raw materials that the guys make the stuff in, I'm like, God, I love that. Let's not cover it. Let's just leave it raw. So that's something, the building process I really like. I was just saying to Jolie earlier, this is, I have an Instagram account, which I'm not particularly interested in doing, but I have quite a lot of followers, but only because of Harry Styles. And it makes me laugh that I get a lot of people on my Instagram saying, I'm only here because Harry liked this. So it's not actually sometimes about the quality of your work, how many likes you get. It can just be about something completely different. And I worked on an exhibition with Tim Walker called Wonderful Things. And this was taking his, I suppose, last 20 years of his work, condensing it into a sort of a mini distilled exhibition. But also we shot 10 more series of work. Each series was based on an object from the V&A. And then we showed this work in a specifically designed space. And so I worked on printing the photography and making the photography work in the space that I also designed. And this was a really important and fantastic, brilliant project to work on. Probably a one-off, although it's traveling around the world as we speak, I think. So this was to show this is the retrospective room where his work from the last sort of 20 years was shown. And I wanted to show this in a very clean, slightly sort of clinical way, but I always like to bring humour into my work. So there's sort of dripping paint coming down the ceiling, and actually I've got the drips back. You can see them there behind me there. I got them back from the V&A because I loved them so much. I'm going to put them up in my studio. So I digress. And then this was the Chapel of Nude, so that the exhibition sort of evolved. So you went into a smaller room that was, I designed it with plaster, so it was meant to look kind of warmer and slightly flesh-like and quite roomy. And actually this piece of furniture, I used a close-up of a shell that we shot in the Hieronymus Bosch pictures and had it digitally printed. So it sort of was it looked like a sort of it was sort of a strange sort of sexualized lip sofa. I always make like little jokes in my work, which nobody else probably sees, but entertain me. And this was the end of the exhibition, which was how Tim's work starts. Actually, he does these sketchbooks where he puts sort of notes and pictures and cuttings and colours and bits of wallpaper or wrapping paper, and we just scaled them up and did them enormous. But when I say it was the incredible amount of work to make them like that. Every single edge of the pages you see was a chosen image that we scaled up in size and texture and thickness and everything. So the attention to detail is really, if you bother, it makes all the difference. And again, I'm really impressed how people really see and feel those details. People do notice it. And this is the book for the exhibition, which, there you go. Some other pictures from, this was a series that was based on the Bayeux tapestry that the V&A hold. That was one of the objects. And then this one was one of the shoots that we did that was based on a ivory chess set that the V&A hold. And I sort of saw these chess set pieces as almost like Dali-esque animals. So we I actually bought the animals from a weird theme park place, and then we sort of chopped them up and added in extensions and made weird dripping ears and made bendy backs and then painted them up in kind of crazy colours. So often these things are sort of, like I said before, we start off with something, because to build it right from scratch becomes extraordinarily expensive and takes long. And actually I enjoy starting with something physical of the right scale, and then it evolves. We were actually in Pershore, which was near my mum and dad's house, so we all went and stayed there when we did this shoot. And we had extraordinary weather, which isn't often the case, actually. It's normally raining. And then again, this was another series from the V&A collection that was based on Aubrey Beardsley, the illustrator. And I was really experimenting with how to draw in a white studio without drawing on the surfaces. So I was sort of experimenting with drawing with silhouette cutouts or beads, like just laying black beads, drawing in the air, or drawing with it's called welded steel and wire and here. So everything was very lightweight, and yeah, I was trying to draw in the space. And actually this worked really well and was really, I think, was a very successful way of doing it, actually. And then this is to show some work that I do with my husband, who's a photographer, who's also called Tim, but he's called Tim Gutt. And this is another part of the work that I enjoy immensely, that I get involved in casting and choreography and costume, and more the direction of photographs, not necessarily always the physical that you see, or you could say, oh yeah, the set designer did that. Sometimes there's much more to the things that I do. I was making up a silly dance that they were all copying at this point. Yeah, so this is and these are more sort of art-based pictures that was completely personal projects that have no use. And then we did a small sort of evening where we showed the pictures, because we produced it into a book. And also we did a presentation of the model here, and she sort of did a live performance with these sort of, not puppets, but sort of effigies of people. And that was a really nice, and I purposely didn't document that. That was a live event. And this is to show the fashion shows that I do. And this was for Marnie a couple of years ago, or 3 years ago now. And we filled this space with, I mean, I can't remember how many beds. You would not believe how many sheets we needed to get. And I don't like making beds. There was bad bits to this job. It was very difficult and a lot of ironing. Yeah, but the end result was great. And of course, what happens with a fashion show, it looks lovely like that. And then all the guests come in and sit on the beds and you can't see anything. And it's over. And this was a really great project I did with Tim Walker again for the 2000 and, oh God, I think 18 or 17 Pirelli calendar. And it was the first all black calendar. And this was great. This was a really great job. And I got involved in the costumes as well with Edward Ennefel and all sorts of brilliant people involved in this. And this made some waves, and it was, yeah, it was great. This is my red roses upside down. And this was Ducky Thott, who was the model. She was Alice, and she was fantastic. And this is a miniature room that we made for her world. These were just not terribly interesting, but just to show sometimes my work is quite sort of fairy tale and narrative, but then often I do sort of slightly more conceptual, more minimal things, which I also enjoy doing as well. And this was just using a lot of found waste materials. I suppose it almost ended up looking a bit like a sort of a faux art gallery. Again, and this is a picture that I love. I love doing still lifes as well. Yeah, I've always liked this picture. And then this was just to show sometimes the commercial things that maybe, I mean, I look at this and I sort of slightly cringe that I'm showing you all, but it's almost to say, to pay your way, you have to do some commercial stuff that maybe isn't the thing you absolutely love for all sorts of different reasons, but there's always a way to have a go at making it as nice as you possibly can and learning something from it, whether it's techniques or new materials or something. Yeah, so it's just to show you some H&M windows that I worked on that I don't think are my best work, but there's something that I'd never worked with wool before, or using rope as a sort of a surface texture. So these sort of more commercial projects, actually, you can learn and get to do really fun things within them, even if it's not your dream job. I try and see it as a challenge to do something that I want to do. And this is also just so sometimes, actually this is funny enough, this is my dad's company. He owns a tap company, and he asked me to do the advertising with my husband, and there wasn't a big budget. And this is quite interesting because I went back to what I started off doing, which was paper sculpture. So really it's literally just paper that's bought from the art shop and made into a tulip or into water. And I enjoy doing this as much as I enjoy doing some of the bigger things. I find the guidelines or the scale of some of the jobs are inspiring in the way that they sort of confine you and you want to sort of burst out of it. I find that process really interesting, actually. Yeah, I won't. This is probably Jolie. How are we doing for time? Am I rambling?
Yeah, it's just so great to see just like the diversity of your work. I've been really enjoying it. I mean, we're over the 10 minutes, but so how many slides have you got left?
Can't remember. Not that many. I think probably about 10. I'll go quick.
Okay, cool.
So this is one of the other shoots for the V&A, which was based on a 16th century sort of embroidered casket that a 16-year-old girl had done in the 16th century. And inside the casket, which was like a little treasure box, was a miniature garden that she'd made out of wire and paper, and it had these little statues in. And this was me bringing it into sort of scale. And how I wanted to do that was, if you imagine something very small that is made like a tree that's made out of paper, actually, if you were to blow that up in scale, the leaves would become quite thick in because there's only so much detail you can do in something tiny. So I used sort of thick foamy materials to make the leaves and the flowers because I wanted this sort of weird chunky feeling. And I also wanted to add something of this time now into this representation of their time. So I used sort of synthetic materials, and the carpet, the sort of furry looking furry velvet stuff is actually cheap, really cheap carpets from Dalston Market that we used as the grass. And then the statues, I bought loads of sort of weird statues, the kind of, I don't know, like a sort of a leprechaun playing a fiddle. And they were all hideous, but I sort of smashed loads of them up and then cobbled them back together in these bizarre sculptures using stretchy bandage and painted them all white. So again, it's sort of a collage of stuff. Not everything was from scratch. And sometimes that enables you to see a material or something that you can use in a way without having to think, oh my God, I've got to carve that, I've got to set it, I've got to do all these processes that take take an enormous amount of time and money. There are shortcuts you can do. Mini horse, a Falabella horse who was not that happy in this little set. He didn't like this world. This is a shoot that we did for Louis Vuitton about 6 months ago, I think. Oh, this was during COVID, actually, this is the first shoot I did back, which was interesting. Nothing really changed other than we all wear masks and aren't allowed to make our own coffee. But here we go. There is music, but it's not on there. So this was all actually hand painted. All the clouds on the ceiling and the walls was all hand painted off-site on canvases, and then we brought it into the studio and finished it off. I like this. I really like this, actually. It was good fun. This was a great creative job that went smoothly and looked, the result was really great, and the clothes were great. It's not always like that. Great shot. And then this is something actually that has only just come out that I've shot with my husband. That was Emma Corrin, who is she plays Diana in The Crown, and she's a fantastic actress. And this is a shoot for Buffalo Zine, and we wanted to show Emma in many different character roles. And the concept behind this is, so I suppose what I wanted to say with this is that sometimes the set design is actually a concept. It's not necessarily, the set isn't the thing that makes the pictures, it's sort of an idea. So this idea was that when you film, you shoot on green screen to later be comped or photoshopped into, I don't know, this could be a sailor on a deck of a ship, and behind her is crashing waves. And so to save money, they shoot it on this kind of weird chroma green, and then it's easy to cut out on the computer and layer on top. And I love the idea of keeping the chroma green as the background. There's no more, and it sort of almost put the onus on Emma's performance to make you believe something, and then somehow what is missing is the concept, kind of. And we worked with hair and makeup to make her into, this is Mark Bolan, but this is Emma. So sometimes my efforts and energies go into the character, not necessarily the set. And I enjoy this as much as the set design, actually. And this was her as Shirley Temple. And Rudolf Nureyev, the ballet dancer. And the picture on the right actually was, I was sort of desperate to show a really sort of crying, snotty child. And we were trying to get a sort of a snot bubble on her nose. And the makeup artist was washing up liquid through a straw and trying to stick it onto her nostril. And it wasn't quite working. But actually, in the end, that ended up being the picture. And that's something that I always love, is that the process sometimes overtakes the result you imagined. And if you have the confidence and the right people around you to let the process take you somewhere, that is really the most creative part of working in photography, I think, is the process. That's the bit that I feel is really magical and is really good fun. Yeah, that was it.
Thank you so much. I actually might just invite anyone who has any questions at this point just to put them in the chat, or does anyone unmute themselves and ask anything directly? You're very welcome to do that too. Whilst you're thinking of questions, I might ask a question, but yeah, very much think of other things as well you'd like to ask. But can you talk a bit about the process of these projects, because they seem that they can be so vast in their production. Like, what time frame are we talking about from sort of getting commissioned to create something, and then it finally, you know, the photograph being taken, or what sort of, how long are we talking?
It's often you sort of hear rumblings of the project, I'd say 2 months before it ends, and normally you know nothing more until about 2.5 weeks before, and really that is when it all happens in a massively compressed time. And actually, funny enough, if it takes any longer than about 2.5 weeks, it gets too expensive, because, you know, each day there'll be 3 or 4 people working on that, and each person needs to be paid, as do I need to be paid. So actually, if it becomes too protracted and too relaxed, it becomes extortionately expensive very, very quickly. So this sort of forced deadline often gives it boundaries, and so it is always a lot quicker than you think, but therefore you have to throw a lot of people at it. This, you know, my set builder Pete, who is a master, he's amazing, nothing would get done without him. You know, he sort of dreads my phone call, and I'm like, oh, what are you doing in 10 days? Can we go to Paris and we have to build this? And the logistics are extraordinary, but actually everybody who works in this field seems to thrive on not the drama, but the deadlines. It's sort of really sort of the challenge. It really ignites a lot of people's drive. And my own. I also like a pressured deadline, although I dread it. I also do actually really enjoy it.
And would you be working on sort of one thing at a time, or have you got a few projects all sort of running alongside each other?
We normally have 3 is a really nice amount, because normally there's a lot of prep work, design work, budgeting, and then making, and then shooting, and then editing sometimes, depending on if I'm involved in that. And my team all work on different things. So actually 3 jobs, and there's 3 of us at my studio. 3 jobs is very nice. One, we all sort of head our own job, and then we all do parts of it. And it's often easier to work on more than one job at a time, but you need more people. But that's what I quite like 3, any more than that. But it is sometimes 5, you know, which is horrendous. You can't choose when they come at you, that's the thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. So someone's just asked about, after leaving university, how did you secure your foot into the set design world, other than your 3-month job? Is it more of who you knew than what? Sorry, I didn't read that very well. Did you get that? Is it more than who you knew than what you knew?
I think it was what I didn't know, actually. I think I blindly went, I suppose, yes, I had a friend who worked in Days Confused magazine, which I suppose she believed, I don't know why, she believed that I could make a paper set. And so we made a paper set. So I suppose, yes, that foot in the door was with somebody who was working at a magazine, but she, you know, she'd only just got her job there as well. We were all fresh out of college. It wasn't somebody high up. So I suppose, yes, that her first foot in the door was somebody who I knew. And establishing those relationships, I think I just wanted to produce work, and I made sure that everybody I met led me on to someone. And then those people weren't anybody yet. I wasn't anybody yet. They weren't anybody yet. So we were sort of mates doing kind of funny jobs that were good and led to more things. So I would say those foot in the door, or those introductions, are worth a lot, but only if you have something to give and you are willing to give a lot. Otherwise, that introduction is useless.
Yeah, and we actually spoke a bit about before everybody else joined, about the importance of collaboration within your work. And I guess even at the very beginning, when you were just drawing on your networks and your community, that idea of collaborating with people was the really thing that was the springboard into getting your work and ideas out there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, set design is nothing without a photograph or a theatre, you know, and without an audience, or without the people who help you build it, or how the magazine believed in that picture to print it, and hair and makeup artists and all those people you work with also bolster your confidence. And the fact that you say you're going to do something to somebody else means that on that Saturday morning at 6 a.m, if you've said you'll be there, you're going to be there. Whereas if you're just working with yourself, you might let yourself down. And that's what I would say, those self-imposed sort of deadlines and meetings with people spur you on. And I'd be more inclined to let myself down than somebody else down. So that used to keep me going and keep me working.
And another question about surrealism and how surrealism inspires your work. I know you mentioned it briefly earlier, but yeah, how does it inspire your work?
I think it's a massive part of how I approach my work. I think the language of surrealism, the humour and the visual puns that are sometimes taken from words even. I love making all those connections, and I think that that's quite surreal. And also there's this sort of dreamlike state. A lot of people say, oh, your work's really fairy tale, which I don't think it is actually. I feel it's more dreamlike. And dreams are often surreal. You know, you can be having a dream that you're on a ship and suddenly a crew of, I don't know, peacocks walk over the boat, whatever happens. And in your dream, it seems perfectly normal and feasible and believable. And that's the state that I like to try and visualize and show people, is this, yeah, it's crazy, but hey, you can believe it. It's there. You see it. It's in front of you. So I think it is really important to me.
That's a good question. And this is a good one. So what advice would you give for a person with almost no budget, starting in set design, or maybe having an idea for a set design, and what advice would you paper?
Or
rubbish bins.
Think about what you have at your fingertips, like whether that is you live in a tiny bedroom and that's all you have, or you live with your parents in the countryside, or you are I don't know, you work selling burgers in a parking lot. Whatever it is, try and use something that you would be able to use as your starting point, whether it's a place or materials, or, you know, if you're, I don't know, your mum might have amazing bed linen, make stuff out of bed linen. To try and choose a resource that is near to you that can inform your design. Because you can save literally hundreds and hundreds and thousands of pounds by doing that. It's or look around. That's why I get a lot of my stuff from pound shops, because I can go into a pound shop and there might be cellophane children's umbrellas that are £1 each, and they're big and they're colourful and they're clear, and they could turn into amazing flowers. You could rip them up and make them into something else. So I would say look for starting points that are easily accessible and grow your ideas around that, rather than thinking, I want to make a 20-foot elephant. From, you know, I'm giving an example that I can do because I have budgets and you know, behind me, but don't give yourself that headache. Start with something that you can absolutely achieve, or do it all out of recycled materials. Go to a tip, make sculptures there. It might not be ideally what you want, but you can start to find your voice and how you work by doing those things. I think producing work and visuals of your own is the most important thing you can do. Or you make really mini sets, literally, like this.
And you mentioned recycling, but someone has wondered what pressures there are from the industry in terms of sustainability.
Um, I think the pressures from the industry at the moment are that they are desperately trying to not look like they don't care. And at the moment, the fashion industry are trying to look like they care, which I suppose in the end result will mean they care. But the pressure for that is actually coming from myself and my crew. We're trying desperately to lessen our footprint, remake things, use recycled materials or stuff that's in the bin, or we paint old furniture and not buy loads of new things. So we make a big effort here, and after the shoots we give it all to a children's scrap project. In fact, I don't know if the children's scrap project may give younger people, it's basically a resource where you can go and you know, if you were doing a school play, you can find things, or students can go and pick up fabric. But I think it's a very, very good resource that maybe any budding set designers might be able to go and see, you know, they might, like, all my old paints go there. If we buy, you know, meters of fabric that I can't store, we give it there. Or props. In fact, we've got a great big pile of furniture and props ready to go there next week. So that might be another resource that people can use. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really useful. And just a bit about the process in terms of how you generate the ideas. And someone's just asked about, so you showed Tim Walker how he developed his ideas using sketchbooks. Are you similar in your approach, or does your final idea appear first and then you work backwards?
I used to do that. I used to pretend to have rough ideas when I was at college. I always remember used to do the final work and then try and produce sketchbooks for it. But actually,
I used to do that as well. I remember.
Yeah, it was complete fast. But funny enough, now I do it the right way around. And I normally, my ideas manifest as ridiculous lists and sort of note taking, though not very organized ones, but just thoughts and ideas and little doodles. And I keep files of references on my desktop. Like I think, oh, I kind of fancy doing a sort of a wobbly clown thing, and I pile any random stuff that I see in there. But I don't do sketchbooks. I keep all my stuff together, but I just do it on A4 paper and file it, because then we often need to scan it and put it somewhere else. Or I'm always often on the go. I'm doing the drawings in a cafe, well, pre-COVID, or somewhere else in a hotel. I don't have sketchbooks with me the whole time. I need to be able to do it on a piece of back of an envelope and a drawer, you know.
And have you like kept all of that? Have you got like files and files of all of your sketches and ideas?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Another one, we've only got a couple minutes, so maybe this is the last one. Talking about who comes up with the ideas. So, and maybe you can mention this with your relationship with Tim Walker, because I know you've worked so closely with him for so many years. Yeah, who comes up with the idea? Is it your idea and then he's capturing it, like, or is it a mixture of both? Like, how does that work in regard to like people? Yeah, the final image being someone's idea.
It really varies. Sometimes Tim will come and say, I want to do a soldier shoot with people in sardine boxes. And then other times I might go to him and go, oh, I really fancy doing these things with sort of, I don't know, green goblins, whatever. And then sometimes it's almost like a really beautiful mix of two ideas we both had that kind of get sort of sandwiched together. So it really is. Or he might come with an idea and he said, I want to do oversized stuff. I fancy doing a big watering can. And then I might come up with, 6 other ideas for oversized stuff. It's always a conversation, and it's never, and actually I really don't enjoy it when somebody says, this is what I want to do. Can you build this? It doesn't interest me at all. And if somebody has a very fixed idea, I always try and bend it or shape it into something that I can make my own. But yeah, it really varies from somebody else's idea to totally my idea. It really can, and every single permutation in between.
on mute. Yeah, because I think that ties into another question around, could you describe what it's like to work with photographers, clients for the first time, or who have completely different techniques or visions to you? So I guess you've just sort of answered that as well, in the sense that it's very fluid depending on who it is.
It is, and I suppose people with different visions and techniques, I have learned to avoid those people. People who like sort of super slick, cold, modernist things is something that I find I don't enjoy working on. And this sort of execution of perfection and slickness is something that it doesn't interest me, and I find very difficult. And it is actually incredibly difficult it's harder to build something that looks amazing that is super simple than something that's kind of pretty crazy. So that's something that I sort of, but out of experience, I've learned not to gravitate towards those people, because there's no point. They don't want what I can give, and I don't want to give them something that they want. So it's not the happiest relationship. But you manage and you learn, and you just don't do it again.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Shona. It's been so fascinating. Yeah, just to see the breadth of your work over so many years. I would have loved to have seen your photograph, with the paper at the very beginning from the days. Yeah. I'd love to have seen that, just to see what the journey that you've made.
You might be able to find it. Salwa, tech support, my lovely studio manager, is going, I can find it. So maybe
should we just quickly end on, because I think also for anybody that is starting out, that's thinking about how they can draw on the materials around that they have, what ideas that they have, or the community that they're building through university, or the other creatives that they know. So I think that's a really nice story, that you had a friend that was a collaboration. So I think it's a nice piece of inspiration.
Yeah, your peers are your armory and your collaborators, and they will stay with you for the next 25 years. I'm still working alongside my friends and people, they're all obviously we're now much older now, but we all started off as 20 somethings and now we're all 40 somethings and older, but I'm still with the same people. Which is really nice. So it is really important to nurture those relationships. If you've got a friend who's a filmmaker who you like their work, work with them, because they'll get a lot out of you as well. So I wonder if you found it. No, we might not be able to find it.
I might not be able to. Well, maybe you can send it to me afterwards, and then I can send it out. That would be lovely. Yeah, I can send it out in a roundup email.
I will.
Thank you so much, and thanks everybody for your amazing questions.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that we had enough time to be able to run through most of them.
We've got it.
Oh, we've got it. We've got it. Wow.
It was the horse. Hold on. It was the one sec.
I could airdrop it.
Here you go. Oh no, I'll just show it.
No, we can just swivel it round.
Oh yeah, here you go. Yeah. Just make that really big. Here we go.
There we go.
So here we go.
Wow. That's amazing.
And then this actually, Erica, the model. Funny, she was the first model I worked with, and she is now a really good friend, and she helps me make costumes sometimes. And she was a model that was always turning up when I was shooting. She'd be there, and so she's still a good friend and a collaborator. So it's amazing how everything carries on, actually.
Yeah, and the connections are continue to be made, and Oh, I'm glad we found it. Thank you. And everybody, I'm going to launch the quick poll. It will literally take you 2 seconds. But yeah, thank you so much, Shona. And it's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, good. Well, good luck, everyone. And just keep going. Do stuff.